I found this what happened to me is like in the institute where I'm at in Canada, in the critical studies and improvisation. I went to a workshop actually about music education, and the topic was about feedback. And this is how I discovered that method. This person came and introduced us to the method, and I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting because it was not specifically related to improvisation, but I found I was like, that might be very interesting for us who are in a big group of people sometimes and who can receive feedback, as you said, Laura, from peers, or it can also be like in a training program where you're hosting or you're facilitating a training program, and then you have like people coming to receive feedback from you which is the case, for example, for Rhiannon in her program All the Way In, where like people come and they expect feedback from Rhiannon. And I think this process could be very useful. So just to be very brief on like how it works, there are 4 steps in this process. The first time is the first step is called statements of meaning. Statements of meaning. And the first step is basically like the person in charge of the group, or if there any person, like anyone in charge of it. The idea is to start to wonder about, for example, the question we can ask is, what has meaning for us or for you or for anyone in the room about what we just experienced? So it means that the first step is not about saying, oh, I loved it, or it was amazing, because when we say that, we already like bring an opinion, right, in the room. So the idea is, as a step 1, is not to give opinion, but actually to reflect more about what we experienced. It can also be like what was stimulating, what was surprising, what was evocative, what was memorable, touching, meaningful, challenging, different, compelling for us. So it can be as a group, it can be otherwise, like for example, if we have someone who just led, for example, a circle song. For those, I don't know if all of you knows that term, but just having someone leading, like in the middle of a circle and attributing sounds, loop of sounds to people. So if we have a conductor and the conductor would like to receive feedback, so the first step would be to reflect that way, meaning that we don't express an opinion right away. Does it make sense for everybody? Yeah? Let me know if I'm not clear. But I found those questions, specific questions, very interesting because it's more about the experience that we just went through that is important, and it's not about our opinion that could be heavily connoted or can be sometimes harmful, or sometimes like it can also like be very positive for the person or for the group, but also is it like a feedback that will help the group as well? Would it be helpful? So that's the first step. Then the second one is, if the second one is more about what type of feedback we want to receive. So Liz Lerman called it artist ask questioners. So it would be like, for example, as a group, if we just like talked about how meaningful the experience was, how challenging as well it was, maybe for us, then someone in the group can ask for clarification or can ask for like a specific feedback on topic that they just heard, which means that on the first step, people expressed what they experienced. And then maybe for someone in the group, they were like, oh, I haven't noticed that, or I haven't even realized that. And maybe that person will be, oh, actually, I would be interested to receive more feedback on that topic. It means that the person is already giving permission to receive feedback on that topic. Does it make sense for everybody? Yeah, that clear? Okay, so that's step 2. And then when it's done, we reach step 3. And step 3 was for me the one that was like, oh, that really raised me questions, because it's really about wording. And it's called neutral questions for responders. And basically, it's how to design a neutral question. And for me, when I read the whole book, I was like, oh, that's something I didn't know, or I really like personally, like I was like, that's something challenging. I'm going to give you just right now an example. In the book, it's written, why, if you ask the question, why is the cake so dry? It has nothing related to improvisation, but just to understand. Why is the cake so dry? If you ask this question, you already like assuming that the cake is dry, right? So you're already like expressing an opinion. So that's what she called in English, opinionated question. That's the way she calls it. And then she's saying maybe like instead of just saying this type of question, we can go to another level of question, which is called embedded questions, which is the natural question would be, what kind of texture and consistency are you aiming for this cake? Which is totally different because you don't express your opinion right away. You're just being like, oh, by the way, what type of texture were you searching for in this cake? So that at least the person can respond, and maybe you would be surprised actually about the response. But at least you don't like express your opinion. And so for her, this is absolutely essential that we respect that. So the step 3 is to ask questions to people who want to receive feedback and really make sure that you don't express your opinion. So for example, in terms of music, if someone just sang a song, for example, or just improvise, and be like, if you say, do you really understand what this song is about? If you ask this question, this is opinionated. It's hard in English. Opinionated question, because you already in your mind we can read already like it shows that maybe like the person doesn't really comprehend its meaning. Rather, a natural question would be, how did you prepare your interpretation of the song? You know, is it clear like for you like how the differences are? Maybe it's a common thing for you, but for me at least, that's really something I was like, oh. So when I started to read that book, I realized I was very close to nonviolent communication. Then I came across as well in Musica do Circulo in my training. But it was not as precise. It was not about like feedback, especially in Musica do Circulo at all. But I realized that it's really about nonviolent communication, basically. But for Liz Lerman, this process is super important to respect. So step 1, step 2, step 3, and then step 4, when you have really like asked neutral questions. Then she calls it step 4, permission opinions. This is where maybe the opinion is coming. But each person who's gonna ask the question in a group, the person will have to start with, I have an opinion on blah, 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 blah. Do you want to hear it? It can be also as a group. I have an opinion on this. Do you want to hear it? As a group. Which already like set up, you see the feedback in a different position because you're asking permission first. From my experience, I remember giving feedback in Rhiannon's training to a peer because that was the task. We had to do it. And I remember that I fell on that layer. I didn't ask for that person if she was okay to receive feedback on that topic. And that's also so now it's something that I will do, but I found it very interesting to notice that. Yeah, Tracy?
How many people, after you've told them that you have an opinion on something, say they don't want to hear it?
Sorry, what was that again?
If you tell somebody that you have an opinion about something,
Yeah.
how likely is it for them to say, no, thank you, I don't want to hear it?
Well, that's actually a topic that she talks about in the book a little bit.
Mhm.
Well, she was saying that in order to instead of saying maybe like no, like I don't want to hear it, maybe it would be like something like not right now, which means like maybe later on, maybe in another situation. For example, if you're in the front of a group and you don't want to have feedback on that topic in front of everybody, you can maybe say, "Oh, not right now, but maybe later on when we're gonna speak together," or I don't know. So that might be also an alternative, according to her, that might be useful. What I found out for myself personally, like because I started to try this process, but I haven't practiced this a lot. But I tried a little bit. But what I found was challenging is that if you ask people, like for example, on step even 2, when you like, what type of feedback you want to receive for the person, I realize that a lot of people don't know. They don't know the type of feedback they want to receive because we're not trained on that. We don't know. Like it's like I remember asking a student. It was in the classroom in at university level, and the person came to me and said, "Oh, can you give me feedback?" And I said, "Okay, so but what type of feedback you want to receive? Like, do you want to receive on what topic?" And the person was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Is there anything you would like me to talk about? Because I don't want to talk about something you're not in that maybe is not relevant to you." And I remember for that person didn't know. And they were not able even to articulate what they wanted to hear or what type of topic or the topic or whatever. So I that's why I realized that this topic is super important to that we as a community start to address and maybe like give training or give like like workshops about it because I think it would be useful. Because from my practice, I really realized that this question of feedbacks for some people is like, but just tell me if you liked it or not. But this is not what we call a constructive feedback because that's opinion, right? It's just an opinion.